moderator of this event. We appreciate the turnout. This event will be recorded and will be able to be seen on the Fayette Alliance website. So if you have friends or people that you think would be interested, you can pass that information on to them. We appreciate you all being here. We appreciate the candidates being here, of course. We want to thank the Farm Bureau, the Fayette County Farm Bureau, the Fayette County Neighborhood Council, Fayette Alliance, and especially the Kentucky Theater and Portofino who are the sponsors of this event. So let's give them a hand. Eight candidates, and there are a total of 6 questions. We have the theater for a limited amount of time because Fred is going to show a movie tonight. So I guess if we stay here, we can probably get it through. Don't tell Fred I said that. So each organization is going to have 2 questions. We are going to go in a slightly different order with respect to the responses of the candidates. We don't believe there's any absolutely completely fair way to do this. We're going to do substantial justice about that. We have 8 candidates, 6 questions and 8 candidates, so everybody will not get to go first and everybody will not get to go last. I think what we're doing is fair. Gentlemen, I think we'll begin by asking the candidates to introduce themselves to the audience. Mr. Beatty, would you begin? We'll go right down the line.
Yes, I'm Anthony Beatty, Sr., a candidate for the office of Mayor.
I'm Jim Gray, candidate for the office of Mayor.
My name is Bill Sigalka. I'm a candidate for Council of Large.
Steve Kay, candidate for re-election to the Council of Large.
John Larson, I'm your judge's executive, and I'm a candidate for Council of Large.
Chris Logan, also a candidate for Council at Large.
Richard Maloney, Council at Large.
Kevin Stennett, current 6th District Council member and a candidate for Council at Large.
Okay, we are ready to begin the questions and answers. The candidates will have some people down here will be holding up signs for them on time. So we'll ask you all to attend to those time things. The first question will be from Fayette Alliance.
Thank you, Judge. From a land use planning perspective, what is the biggest challenge and opportunity facing our community today?
Mr. Beatty, we'll begin with you.
We can't hear that.
We can't hear it.
I'm sorry. We'll ask Knox to ask that question again.
From a land use planning, what is the biggest challenge and opportunity facing our community today?
Lexington has a unique branding situation where that we have an urban belt, an urban enterprise, I should say, and then a green space. And certainly what's unique about Lexington is the fact that we have this distinction and we want to maintain that brand whereby we have a distinct urban core and a rural area that gives us the distinction and identity. So the challenge is for us as a community is how we maintain that distinction, how do we control the urban growth, control growth I should say, not just urban growth, but control growth, and then how do we make urban-rural mix of land use happen in a controlled environment in a way that makes our community conducive to both agricultural and to an urban setting. And we certainly need an urban core. We certainly want to develop that because it's vital for the economics of our community. But at the same time, we need to have measures in place that will control how our growth occurs and how we manage our land use.
Special, settled almost 240 years ago. And that special quality translated 56 years ago into creating the nation's first urban services boundary, which has led to the establishment of what is nationally and arguably internationally known as a brand, protecting, preserving, and conserving an environment that also surrounds a vital and engaged city. I said 4 years ago that there are 3 overarching goals: creating jobs, running government efficiently, and building a great American city. A big part of that, a big strategy, is preserving our rural landscape. What is often referred to, especially by those in the farming community as a factory floor. And at the same time, engaging strategies that will stimulate and encourage jobs and a diverse economy. Getting things done has been a touchstone for me in the last 4 years, and getting things done will be a touchstone for me in the next 4 years.
Mr. Segalko?
Thank you. I want to thank the Fayette Alliance, Neighborhood Council, and Farm Bureau for inviting us here and sponsoring the first debate. I agree with both former Chief Beatty and Mayor Gray about balance when it comes to land use. Having been on the council for a few years in the past, the number one priority always changes. Sometimes it's public safety, sometimes it's education, sometimes it's the budget. You have to bring to bear when you go to work every day to have a job like this, and I commend everybody who's willing to serve. You have to be willing to solve problems and get to the underlying issue, not just accept the surface-based arguments that people are making, but really study the issues and try and solve the problem as much as possible. I think one lingering problem that's existed in Lexington for a long time is the divide in opportunity and education that exists in our community, particularly for children. And one of the things I would like to do is engage in some pilot programs at some underachieving schools using the Parks and Rec Department, which operates a number of after-school programs, to try and close the achievement gap so that children are on grade level. When they enter 4th grade, they're on grade level in reading and math, so that they have the opportunity to succeed. They're 4 times more likely to graduate high school, much more likely to go into college. And if there's one investment in our people that we can make, we're going to talk a lot about investments in land and opportunity, but if there's one investment in our people that we can make, that would be it.
Mr. Kay?
Thank you, and I want to echo the thanks to the sponsors of the program tonight and bring people together. I think everybody understands that Lexington is a very appealing place to live. And if you don't know, we're growing at the rate of roughly 3,000 people a year. The challenge is, where will those people live? And where will services be for them that they need to live a good life? The challenge, of course, would be easy if we had an inexhaustible plan to develop. But we don't. I think most people understand that, as has already been said, the green space that we have is our signature. We're the horse capital of the world. And that is a resource that is finite. Sooner or later, we will have to stop developing open green space. And we have, as a community, a decision to make about when we will do that and how we will do that and what that will mean, what the look of our community when we make that decision. Most people want to preserve the green space. I would agree with that. The opportunity lies with infill. I've been co-chair of the Infill Development Committee since joining council. We've worked diligently to determine ways that we can incent more development in the downtown area and areas surrounding downtown where it makes sense to provide more density. The question becomes, how do we do that? How do we do it in a way that continues to keep this community, the people who we value as basically a small town feel? So those are the challenges, those are the opportunities.
Logan, you're going to skip.
I'm sorry,
That's
Mr.
fine.
Larson, excuse me.
Well, I'm not going to, would you hold on just a second until I adjust this? I'm not going to agree with everyone here. I believe the biggest problem is regional planning. And this may be a pretty tough audience. I saw the word Calvary on the billboard outside, and I wondered which 3 of us are going to be crucified today. What we have here is a growing metropolitan area. Lexington has expanded beyond its borders. I'd like to be one of 3 people from this group to show you that we can do something on a regional basis. Regional government is a possibility. It's authorized under statute. And regional planning is something that we have to get to. I don't know if you're aware of this, but our wonderful idea of an urban service area has been denigrated by the placement of that up to the Jessamine County line. So we no longer have a rural rural buffer protecting our urban area, and because of that, we can't expect Jessamine County to have governmental organization to protect us unless we work and cooperate with them. That's what I've been doing for the last 4 years, working with the CAECO, working with other governments. I'm on the MPO, which plans transportation, other organizations, and that's what's important. You have to understand that we need to go beyond the borders of Lexington. Thank you.
You know, when you fly into Bluegrass Airport and you look out the window and you see this landscape in Lexington, you realize, and you must feel, or I do, a little bit like Dorothy, there's no place like home. It is a beautiful city. We are unique, iconic, and some of the most picturesque farmland in the country. Even so much so that, you know, Lexington is unique in its size as a city, not on a major waterway. And you've got to step back and ask what's caused that. And I believe it's the beautiful landscape, the agricultural, the horse industry, the educational opportunities here. But growth is coming. And listen to our superintendent of Fayette County Public Schools this morning. He said schools are growing at a rate of 500 to 700 students per year. So we continue to try to balance preservation of land and growth for Lexington. I think the biggest obstacle right now facing us as a city is being able to decide if we're going to grow up or out. And if we're going to grow up, if we're going to continue to develop available land, then we have a shortfall in our infrastructure. And we've got to get our infrastructure up where we need to be so that we can take advantage of infill and so that we can take advantage of job growth, which will lead to economic growth. And so I think that's the biggest hurdle in front of us right now, is making sure that we move forward on fulfilling the consent decree and getting our infrastructure to the place we need to so that we can continue to grow. Growth is coming whether we want it or not. How we grow is what's at stake right now.
Mr. Maloney.
Thank you. The biggest challenge to me is job creation, and there's two opportunities that I think we can make this happen. We've got the tools here that's going to happen in the next 5-6 years, and those jobs are, we don't have to go out and look for them. They're going to be available. The average plumber, the average HVAC, and the average electrician is 58 years old. We got an opportunity to get back in our schools and where these kids are in younger age and get them back into vocational, because every one of us here need one of those three. And those jobs pay well, and they're big opportunities. The other opportunity we have, and it's the writing on the wall, is cattle. We are the largest producer in central Kentucky, east of the Mississippi River. You see what's happening in the West, the drought and everything. We should take that opportunity and make cattle. Well, you know, we lost our tobacco, but we got the beautiful land. We got the best race horses. Nothing better than having a good, I'm not a bourbon drinker, but if somebody has a good old bourbon with a Kentucky bluegrass steak, we should look at those opportunities and create those kind of jobs and look at the revenue that would be brought in if we do go that direction. And that's something as a councilman, I like to push for.
Mr. Stennett.
As a native Lexingtonian, I often hear Lexington is the Napa Valley of California, or the Bourbon Trail, what the Bourbon Trail is to Kentucky. We have one of the most special landscapes in the country, and the opportunity to protect that is what I've taken advantage of the last 10 years. But along with that protection and that investment in our rural landscape, we also have to look inward. We have to look at a more efficient government, one that spends tax dollars wisely. We have to invest in our infrastructure. As the chair of the Water Quality Committee, we're going to spend $600 million over the next 10 years investing in infrastructure that provides a quality of life and to make sure people's homes do not flood when it rains. So when we look at infill, we look at government programs and services. How do we make them more efficient? I was instrumental in chairing the building inspection task force that created a better planning and zoning method to allow people to relocate businesses in a special zone. We instituted the Commissioner of Planning. Those are all things that government has got to become more efficient on if we're going to protect our urban boundaries in the future. The other last thing that protects our quality of life is crime and public safety. We have to keep investing in that. It provides a quality of life unlike no other in the country. So once we do all that, we can grow jobs. We can invite here and ask businesses to relocate here, and that'll help us grow as we grow people's incomes, because 84% of our revenue comes from those paychecks. And that's why it's important to focus on government efficiency, our infrastructure, and our quality of life, because they all lead to creation of jobs and a better education for all of our community, which will keep our community growing in the right way.
Thank you, gentlemen. The next question will come from the Fayette County Farm Bureau, and this time we'll start with the mayor going down the line, and Chief Beatty, you'll end up with the last up.
Thank you.
Well, good evening, and I would like to thank all of the candidates for being here tonight and participating in the forum. Our question this evening is, the recently released Economic Impact Study of Fayette County Agriculture found that it has $2.4 billion impact and supports 1 in 9 jobs in our local economy. How will you promote this signature industry as part of Lexington's economic development efforts today and in the future?
This falls right in line with the overall goals of creating jobs, running government efficiently, and creating and building a great American city. And why is that? Because the agricultural community has been historically such a key element, such a foundation stone in our city, such a defining part of our brand. So supporting it in ways, I especially appreciate the ideas that Frank Penn and others have, Price Bell and others have brought and presented recently, taking very creative ideas from other places, for example, ideas from the Disney Institute on how we can better promote. I think Councilmember Stinnett mentioned the Napa Valley. So taking creatively what is natural for us and then translating that through the resources we have is an incredible opportunity for us right here at home in Lexington.
Mr. Sigalka.
Well, there's no doubt that agriculture plays a major role in our economy. There's a lot of people in this audience who are a part of that economy. And what's interesting about Lexington, and everybody's kind of touched on this, is how diverse the agricultural economy is in Fayette County. We have the equine industry, then we have sort of traditional agriculture, growing food. We have cattle. We have just a host of industries within the agricultural community. So there's not one size fits all answer, but protecting the brand, marketing the brand is clearly important. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that. I mean, people, if anybody knows anything about Kentucky, they associate it with horse racing and probably 1 or 2 other things. So I think that one of the things we can do to promote it a little bit more would be through tourism, different varieties of tourism. We've done a little bit with the Bourbon Trail and wineries, but then there's also sort of outdoor tourism, I guess they would call it ecotourism, and then horse farm tours, getting people to Keeneland to see up close the equine industry. So there's a lot of different things we can do, and if anybody has any good ideas, I think that all of us on the panel are always here to listen.
Mr. Kay.
Thank you. I think there are really 3 major things we can do to continue to have a vibrant farm economy in this community. The first is to continue to protect farmland by ensuring that we fund the PDR program and continue to retire the development rights off of those farms so that in perpetuity we have that green space and the ability for people to farm without being encroached, having their farms encroached by development. The second thing has already been mentioned. I think ag tourism, there's a lot of potential upside. It's something that we've not done a whole lot of in this community, despite the fact that we have this world-renowned horse industry. It's not just the horses, it's the general ag, it's the ecotourism, all of those things can be important. The third thing is developing a local food economy. And if people were aware of the announcement from UK, they just set up an institute with some of the funds that the contract with Aramark will provide to focus on that. And the reason they're doing that is because they know that we can have better food, healthier people, and a healthier economy, because the money that we spend locally on food stays in the local economy. I'm proud to say that I was instrumental in helping to develop funding for the first local food coordinator in urban county government. She'll be working with UK and others to help develop that economy.
Mr. Larson.
Make no doubt, our equine industry, our wonderful farms that people come to this area to visit, the areas that we hold in our hearts, is vulnerable to being lost. And in my opinion, the best way to preserve the farms is regional planning. We might lose those unless we work together with other counties. Right now, there are 3 counties that have talked about PDRs, but that's not the only strategy. But until we decide what areas are suitable for regional, let's call it industrial planning, if we look at areas that are quite possible for development for industries, we've lost IBM. We don't have the regional centers of Toyota and Ashland Oil. We don't have the structure to get them. We've got to work regionally, and there is that opportunity for us to find a place where we can get together. Other counties will work with us, but remember Pogo? There was a cartoon. We looked for the enemy, and we found it was us. So let's work together. Thank you.
Mr. Logan.
My first job when I was 14 years old was in pulling tobacco, setting tobacco, eventually cutting tobacco, housing tobacco, and stripping tobacco. It provided an opportunity for my family to have a little extra around Christmas time. We have seen over the past years a major decline in our cash crop of tobacco. I believe there's opportunities for local markets and the Kentucky Proud program to grow locally and buy locally and distribute locally, and I want to encourage that. But I think there's another solution for our agricultural community that maybe we don't influence directly here as a council at large candidate, but that is an industrialized hemp. And don't confuse it. Industrial hemp and its evil cousin are 2 different plants. I'm not trying to incorporate any mentality there. But I want to say this, that back in the 1940s, Kentucky was the leading state of industrial hemp. And out of the counties in Kentucky, Fayette County was the leading producer of industrial hemp. If we want to provide opportunities for our farmlands and our farmers to be productive again, we have to have a cash crop alternative. I think we have a unique opportunity. Kentucky has a unique opportunity with the pilot programs that are in place to get ahead of the curve. And Lexington in general, Fayette County has a unique opportunity to kind of be in front of this and to drive this. And I think it provides opportunity, solutions, and income for agricultural land right here in Fayette County.
Maloney.
Thank you. I'm excited about this question because 2 things that I see are very important in the equine. We have the Breeders' Cup coming this year, which is going to put Kentucky all over the map, Lexington especially, and which it's going to be a great event. The second thing that I like to see an improvement, and I would love to help out anyway, is our horse park. We need to make sure we have more events to get these horses locally to be qualified for the Olympics. And I know that they've had some problems with the points to get these horses, so we need to go down to Frankfurt, and as a council member, I would help out and get resolutions passed so we can encourage our state to change some of that so we can get the more important system to get our horses in here to get into the Olympics. The third issue that goes back to my first answer, jobs. Cattle. I'm telling you, cattle is very important. You see what's going across America right now. The droughts are happening. Everybody's starting to pull in, and Kentucky is right now the #1 east of Mississippi. We want to be #1, and that's what we're #1 in horses. We can be #1 in cattle. Just think of the money and the revenue. If Lexington sets that example across the state, Kentucky would be in a lot better place with that kind of business here. And fourth, it's the hemp. I support what the hemp is. And lastly, the roads. If we're going to be council members, we got to fix your roads. I'm telling you, the roads out there and the farmers are in bad shape, and we need to fix those.
Mr. Stennett.
Thank you. You know, creating jobs is not unique to one industry, and the horse industry, agriculture industry goes hand in hand with our healthcare industry and our high-tech industry that have been so vital to our community over the last several years in creating those jobs that we desperately need to fund city government. I'm a big proponent that it's not good enough just to preserve a farm. We have to help it thrive. We have to help it grow. Preservation is one thing, but helping it grow is the more difficult challenge, and that's what we should be focusing on as we go forward. And we start with our kids. We start with educating our kids in our school system of the importance of a local food economy, the importance of the horse industry, not just for racing, but for living, to help people's paychecks, the other people that the horse industry employs, such as accountants, lawyers, doctors, landscapers. Those are all vital to our local economy, and we have to help kids understand that. I met a group of kids downtown the other day, 20-somethings, graduated from public school here, never been to a horse farm, never been to a farm, and they live right in downtown Lexington. That's a shame. We've got to change that culture. And last, we have to identify who our partners are. University of Kentucky, the Kentucky State Department of Agriculture. Those are our partners. We have to learn to bring them into our circle and help them be more active in that Kentucky Proud brand here in Lexington.
Mr. Beatty.
I, like Mr. Logan, was not born on a farm, but very close to one. I had the opportunity to hang tobacco and cut tobacco, so I understand the labors of that. And in my travels around the community and conversing with folks, I learned a lot about the farming and agriculture part of our community that we sometimes take for granted. When we talk about Lexington and we talk about farms, everybody immediately imagines horse farms, thoroughbred farms, a lot of money, very magnificent and beautiful places. But the reality of it is Lexington also consists of those working farms, those small farms who are 50 acres or less. Those folks are out there who make their money on the sweat of their brow, so they live by the farm. And so we've got to elevate the farming industry in Lexington to what it is. It's truly what made Lexington the brand that it is. So I want to focus on first elevating the brand. Secondly, I want to make sure that we control sprawl so that we don't eat up the farmland. And programs, has already been mentioned, programs like PDR are very critical to that. This idea of preserving the farmland, putting measures in place so that they are not overrun with development is very, very critical. So we as a government should continue to fund programs like the PDR program, which has been very successful since Mayor Pam Miller started. The other thing is that, the third thing I think is very important is that we take advantage of the knowledge, skills, and expertise that are here in Lexington and Kentucky. When we talk about agriculture, we have the University of Kentucky with the College of Ag. As was mentioned here a minute ago, just started a new program the other day, a $5 million partnership with Aramark, and it's those kinds of partnerships that'll make farming in Lexington what it should be.
Thank you. The next question will come from the Fayette County Neighborhood Council, and this time we'll start with Mr. Segelka, go down to the end, and then come back to Mr. Beatty and Mayor Gray.
As Kentucky's first merged government, Lexington-Fayette County has always been a nonpartisan municipality. As a result, we have not let the partisan politics of Frankfort or Washington stand in the way of progress at the local level. Please comment on the recent involvement of political parties engaging in our local city elections.
Well, I wasn't familiar that they were too much, to be honest. They haven't been involved in mine. But I do know that one of the reasons local government works better than the state government and better than the federal government is because it is nonpartisan. I was on the council only for 4 years, but I can tell you that the partnerships that we developed, the people that I worked with, for example, on the smoking ban to pass Kentucky's first indoor clean air ordinance, the people involved in that were from both parties. They were Republican, they were Democrat, they were sort of in between. And the majority that passed that came from both sides. The people that voted for or against different key issues were from both parties. It was much easier to get things done because this is a nonpartisan government. I think if you asked people, and I know they have, what they think of the federal government, the partisanship in federal governments, what they think of the partisanship at the state government, they're extremely frustrated. They're fed up. They've had it up to here and beyond. And If that creeps into city politics, it will make it very difficult and much more challenging to get things done.
Mr. Kay.
I'm often asked this question about why our government at the local level works as well as it does, and my answer almost invariably starts with the fact that it is nonpartisan. I actually used a term when I first got on council that said, you know, we really do work well together. People would look at me with a strange look, but it's true. And the reason that works that way, the reason that nonpartisan government works well, I believe, is because the parties don't put up candidates. We don't have a primary. The candidate's not beholden to the party. We don't have party caucuses. We're not beholden for their nomination. It's an important part. It's one of the wisest things we did when the government merged to set up a nonpartisan city council and mayor's race. I think it's important to maintain that. I'm not aware of parties getting involved in these races. If they are, I guess we need to know about that, and people need to make their own decision about whether that's appropriate or not.
Mr. Larson.
I am aware of the partisan problem here. I think I'm the only one who's gone to both Democrat and Republican victory parties. Thank you. The political party I won in office under is not terribly supportive of an issue I find really important to some people here in the audience. Tanya, hello. Jail reform is very important to those of us who worked in the downtown and the court system, finding out what could be done by reducing the number of people in jail and reducing the cost. There are mentally ill people who shouldn't be in jail, and these are partisan issues, or at least they've been made partisan issues. Felon voting has been a partisan issue. Well, I'm here to say that I'm encouraging as many people, in addition to myself from my party, to jump into those particular issues that are really important to people that, you know, people who are vulnerable. We need a decency in this community that should be shared by both parties, and that's not a criticism of one party or another. We know that it's going on. We want to share. We want to encourage people who love Lexington, because it does have both Republicans and Democrats, and I love both. Thank you.
Mr. Logan.
I have been a candidate in a partisan race and a nonpartisan race, so I know what it feels like to work with the party and without the party. I applaud the question. I'm trying to evaluate my own race and to see where I fall on that, and I can say that in my race, I don't feel that we have party involvement. With that being said, I will say that party politics represents what is wrong in our country today, from the federal level, state level, and local level, that we don't work together on the things we agree on, and we hinder everything because of things we don't agree on. And I like that we remove that barrier locally, because we have some issues in Lexington that we've been kicking down the road, kicking the can down the road for too long, that it takes all of us working together. John said earlier that 3 of us would be crucified. I'm glad only 3 is going to be crucified here, but obviously there are 6 candidates, and 3 will emerge from this race. And I think we have to work together as a council. We got big issues that need some solutions, not just rhetoric, not just Band-Aids, but we got issues that Lexington's future hangs in the balance, that we need to move forward. However, with that being said, I will also add this. Politics is about being able to drive the message and be able to communicate with people like you, the voters. I came out of my church last night and saw a very scary picture of a guy next to me on a billboard, and they don't give those to us free. We have to raise money for those things, and donors are partisan. And as much as we want to remove this from local politics, I don't know how we completely effectively do that in the system we live in. I just know this: I don't believe this was our framing founders' intent, that we would have such powerful parties that gridlocked America, and it represents what's not working in politics, and we got to figure out what is working and move Lexington forward.
Mr. Maloney.
Thank you. That's a good question. I've served on this council over 25 years, off and on, and I got to respect what the charter wrote. I've worked with Republicans and I've worked with Democrats. And let me tell you, the party doesn't, when it goes in that council chamber, those go away. It becomes a neighborhood issue. It becomes what's good for your district, what's good, because everybody has the same problem. I may have a problem over here in my district, and this person may have. We come together, we work it out. I think that system works. One example that answers everybody's question, what I think about the partisan race. We did the redistricting, the city of Lexington, and I've been on 4 or 5 of those when I've been a council member off and on. We never had a problem. You go to Frankfurt. Now, y'all know what the problem is out there. We've had lawsuits and we've had problems. So that's why I think this is a wonderful system and we ought to keep it. Thank you.
Mr. Stennett.
Thank you. Kudos to our forefathers for creating a nonpartisan government here in Lexington. I spent the last 10 years working with 3 different mayors and 25 different council members, and I've never once seen the party affiliations come to any of our decision making. And as our mayor now will tell you, and past mayors, you're only as good as those 8 votes you get on council. And I've learned to embrace all 15 council members, because each meeting, each vote, you never know who's going to vote with you. And that's the beauty of our nonpartisan local offices. And I hope we always keep it that way, because it makes it special and it makes it unique. And Lord knows we don't want to be another Washington, D.C. or Frankfurt here locally, because one of the main goals of local government is to respond efficiently and respond quickly. And our local government touches our lives daily more than any other level of government. So that's why it's important to always stay nonpartisan, so we can respond quickly and efficiently to the needs of our community.
Mr. Bailey.
I understand the question was about party politics and partisanship as it impacts local elections, and certainly we see this happening across the country, and no doubt it goes on here in the city of Lexington. The 2-party system that we use for government certainly was set up by our forefathers for a reason, and it does work. But at the same time, partisanship and party politics should not play a role in local government and making decisions in local government, particularly when our job and our duty and local government leaders' duty is to impact the lives of the citizens that they serve on a daily basis. So someone in another party from some other location can't really tell the local government how to operate and how to serve their citizens. So partisan and party politics should not be played in local government. And I, like the person here ahead of me said, thank our forefathers for the insight and the wisdom that they have in setting up the charter to set up a nonpartisan set of offices that we could operate out of. So we deeply, deeply appreciate that. And part of why I'm running for the office is to serve all the citizens, so the party affiliation was not important to me. What's important is how we serve you.
Mayor Gray.
Well, I've learned in 8 years being on the council and now 4 years as mayor that there's no Democratic or Republican way to fix a pothole. And, I grew up in a small town of Glasgow, Kentucky, a town of about 10,000, and our city council is nonpartisan, and city council here has been nonpartisan. And it seems like to me that there's plenty of different points of view without partisan politics involved. And so I think that it works just fine the way it is.
Thank you. The next question will come from the Fayette Alliance, and we'll begin with Mr. Kay. We'll get the first answer, and then we'll go on down and come back again.
Okay, great. Thanks, Judge. There is concern over the recent incidents of violent crime in our community. If elected, what will you do to address this issue, which affects everything from public safety and quality of life to economic development and growth?
I think this is a very important question. We've had a rash of unfortunate shootings and even some people who've been killed lately, and it has the community on edge, and that I regret very much. I live on the north side, and I have for the last 35 years, and in my neighborhood, we have had off and on community policing. And I have been an advocate for community policing ever since we first had an officer come to our neighborhood association, talk to the people about what they see, what their concerns are, what the problems are, and what the police force can do to help. It humanizes the police force, it gives them information. when we had tough budgetary times before I got on council in my first year, really, community policing kind of went by the wayside. I think it's, if not the most important factor, it's one of the most important factors. We want a police force that knows how to relate to its community. We do not want a police force that's militarized, that does not respond in a way that is really effective either for police enforcement or for the good lives in the community. So I would advocate for, in the budget, for expanding the community policing. I've been an advocate for making sure that our police and our fire are well equipped. I think we've not done a good job of keeping up with those needs, and those are things I would advocate for.
Mr. Larson.
I want to explain that we had 4 marches against violence. I had an individual march against violence, and I'll tell you why. At 6 o'clock in Duncan Park or anywhere in Lexington, if you have 50 to 100 uniformed officers, I don't think you're going to have much violence. But at 11 o'clock at night, where some of us went, there was a potential for violence. And we had a little courage to stand up. In my field, criminal defense law, I know more people who've been in these kind of troubles. Unfortunately, criminals have been the victims of crime. I mean, drug offenses, the same people, same neighborhoods. The drug offenses, the drug violence results from guns in possession of young men, could be women, but typically have been shooting related to the change of drugs. We no longer in prescription drugs, and we have people who've changed from the controlled dosages to heroin and uncontrolled dosages. And people kill themselves suicidally or accidentally. And it's important. I told you jail reform perhaps is the best idea. Police do what they can on the streets, but we do the best by having a society who cares for one another, does the right thing.
Mr. Logan.
When you go home tonight and you turn the news on, you're going to see that our world is changing. Whether it be the Middle East, whether it be Detroit, Memphis, or whether it be Lexington, it's changing. As a father of 4 and a husband, I sleep a little lighter at night. I tend to be awakened by the smallest sounds and patrol the house. And feeling safe is important. Feeling secure that your family is safe. I think that the first priority of local government is public safety. I think that allowing and supporting our police department to be able to effectively patrol our streets and respond to crisis situations. I am so excited and glad that our police officers were able to continue to use their cars and have that awareness and that presence on the streets right now. We're fighting a epidemic in heroin that we've never seen before. With the prescription drug problem in the legislation out of Frankfurt, it's caused an uptick in heroin, and it's creating problems all across at every level in Lexington. And we need a police force that can adequately respond and keep us safe. We need to continue to discover ways to fund and to increase our police force and to work alongside them, because public safety to me is the first priority of local government.
Thank you. Public safety is also my number 1 priority. One thing that I have advantage that helped me was in the 90s at Cardinal Valley, which I had, was a very high crime area. Neighborhoods with concerns, and over across on Versailles Road. We were able to get a unit called the Clear Unit. What the Clear Unit means is police comes in there and the police get to know the neighborhood, but it's just not the police. It's code enforcement, it's building inspection. They get to know these people, and it really worked. Crime went down. The neighborhood started looking on their neighbors, watching them, see anything activity. They were able to call the police officer for that area, and they felt good about it. We were able to expand that into 3 more in my district, across Versailles Road, the University of Kentucky, and Gardenside. When I left, there was only 1 unit left. and that was in Cardinal Valley. The one across Purcell's Road, which was Kelsey Drive, we had all those fires. If you all remember, there were fires after fires, and there were none there because the police knew it, the neighbors knew it, and when I talked to the people, they missed that clear unit. And when you get the clear unit in there, the neighbors take pride in their neighborhoods. I see those are the programs that I'm going to push forward, bring back those kind of programs.
Public safety is local government's number one job. As evident through its 65% of our local government budget goes to public safety here locally, and it should be. But funding public safety is not just the only thing we can do. We have to invest in people as well. And people through job creation, better jobs, helps people go back to work, helps these young families that are thriving to raise their children survive. And it also looks at our educational system. We have to go back to the DARE programs in our elementary schools. We have to go back to teaching our young people about drugs and teach them there's a better way and steer clear of the drugs as they move forward and to get better jobs and to grow their families when they get older. So creating jobs and education is one of our big ways to combat our crime epidemic as we move forward, not just through funding public safety in our local budget. I also recently have put into our council committee a substance abuse coordinator position within local government for council to take a look at that role because we recently lost that person, and a lot of our crime issues lately are due to our drug problem. So I've worked hard over the last 10 years to increasing our police staffing, increasing their equipment, and Mr. Maloney, you'll be glad to know we have put back the clear units in most of all the neighborhoods that used to be there. They're back as of a couple months ago. So we're reinvesting back into our neighborhoods to bring those crime rates down because we have to invest in public safety locally, but we also have to invest in people.
Certainly, crime in our communities are symptoms of usually bigger and underlying problems, and some of them have been alluded to here, whether it be drugs or lack of educational opportunities, lack of jobs. But the fact is, crime manifests itself in our communities with the violence that we see that's acted out. And there are many, many ways that a community can react to crime, as we're doing now, but more effectively, you should be proactive in how you deal with crime. And I've said from day one that our job one as a government is to make our community and our people safe. So how do we do that? Well, we properly staff and fund police and other public safety first responders. We certainly provide facilities, provide training, provide the staffing levels that they need, and then we support them in doing just that. And so as we look at the underlying causes, we think about what it is we can do. Well, we have to have a frontline defense, and our police and other public safety officials can and will do a great job with that, but it takes a lot of other partners to do it. I can say to you now that we have regressed in terms of how we proactively police this community, in terms of resources and staffing, and we've got to get back to that proactive fashion, whether it's DARE, Drug Abuse Resistance Education, PAL, the Police Activities League, or we heard mention of CLEAR, the Community Law Enforcement and Response Unit that actually was formerly the Neighborhood Support Unit, which worked hand in hand with the neighbors. Police got to know the individuals on a first-name basis. True community-oriented policing is just that. So when crime occurs, the community trusts the police to respond, and they help them solve the crime.
Mayor Gray.
In order to support our number one priority, our number one core value of public safety, we have to live within our means financially. When I entered office, we had a $35 million deficit. We had a $20 million hole in our health insurance plan. We had a $300 million unfunded liability in our pension system. We made reforms, saving $60 million in 3 years. Over the next 30 years in our pension reform that achieved national attention, we will save $95 million. Now, what did we do with those savings? We translated those savings into investments, especially public safety, where today we are spending more than $600 million. We have hired 165 new police officer recruits, 111 firefighters. These investments, plus the added dimension of going into neighborhoods and restoring them. Some of you know the old Pennington Place out at Richmond Road and Man of War. Some of you know the Sonnet Cove apartments. Together, 600 apartments that were dilapidated, that were inviting crime, are today restored and active. So public safety has many dimensions to it.
Mr. Segalka.
I think we're sort of all singing the same song. I had when I was on the council, I'm sorry to keep saying that, but I represented Woodhill, and we had a community, we had a liaison, and it made an impact. The neighbors felt like they had a contact person. They had this officer's cell phone. They could call her, talk to her. They could share information with her. She attended neighborhood meetings. I attended neighborhood meetings. One of the residents there shared with me that she's never been so happy in her life to see police officers out of the cruiser and walk in the neighborhood. So it made an impact. So when we go through the budget and we make these decisions, that has to be a priority. But in terms of crime, there's several reasons for crime, and we've talked about it. Drugs right now is a major one. We have to teach prevention and in the schools and in the community, but also for people who are addicted to drugs, we have to provide and encourage substance abuse counseling. We have to make sure that people can get back on their feet. We need to provide economic opportunity for people who've fallen on hard times. That's another leading factor in crime. We need to do that through, one way we can do that is through job training and education, particularly with the new location of BCTC. It's an opportunity to provide additional job training and skills training. And the last thing is education. People who have good education get good jobs, or they still can commit crimes, but they're much less likely to. So it's a full-fledged answer to a complicated question, and we need to attack it on all fronts.
Mr. Kay. Did we start with you?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Okay, so the next question then will be from the Fayette County Farm Bureau, and we'll begin with Mr. Larson.
Agritourism is one of Lexington's biggest opportunities. How will you introduce tourism in our acclaimed rural landscape without undermining our natural resources and sensitive farm operations?
Go ahead.
As an advocate for regional planning, I'll go back and hopefully bore you. Tourism is a regional issue. We've got to work together, ecotourism, but this is an exciting area, an exciting chance with the Breeders' Cup coming up. We believe in our area, and other people will believe in it, but we've got to work together. The horse park, yes, but there are other things nearby that can be involved in tourism, and we should be compelled to work with the other counties in this area to glorify their regional, their tourist actions. I want to go back to the last question for just a second. All those who are veterans, would you raise your hand? Any of you who are Vietnam era veterans, please raise your hand. Those of us who felt alienated from society, well, we're back. I had a chance to set up Veterans Treatment Corps. Maybe that's it. Maybe we've got a few positive things to do for our community, and we can sell. Our basketball team has to be number one. Well, maybe our government should be number one. Maybe our institution should be a top 20 institution. Thank you.
Mr. Logan.
On agritourism, the other day I rode my bike out the Legacy Trail, ended up at the horse park, and was reminded as I stopped to watch some equestrian events, just the beauty of the equine, the horse, this majestic. We have the beautiful land. We have an opportunity, and I think that we can leverage such things as the World Equestrian Games and our Breeders' Cup. But I think we have to make our land, as far as agritourism, more accessible. The Legacy Trail is a great opportunity for the local citizen to engage and take advantage of that beauty, ride right alongside some of our most scenic and picturesque horse farms. I would love to see more opportunity in Lexington for expansion of that farmland, availability through the PDR program to allow access and shared use to some degree with such things as bike trails. I believe there's a great opportunity. This is a part of American history that is declining, and I think we can leverage that to increase the opportunity to get people on horse farms, to get people visiting some of these iconic farms and partaking of the beauty that is unique to Lexington here. I think agritourism is something that we can continue to develop and see profits and dividends for in the future. And if elected, I hope to continue to work hard to increase that opportunity for Lexington.
Mr. Maloney.
Thank you. Agritourism is probably one of the most important things in Lexington, for Lexington. I think everybody says, why do people come here to live here, visit? It's because of basketball? No. It's because of a great downtown? No. It's because of the farmlands, and we've got to keep that. But the problem we have out there, our roads are in bad shape out there. And if you go out there, you'll see that. They're in bad shape. And that's something as a council member we can do. And for example, and I think Kevin sent it over here, we were able to bond our project, a $12 million project to do Lexington's roads. We've got to do bonding for out in the country because I've been out there and I don't know how you get around. I'm going to be honest with you, I'm surprised you haven't flipped off. But those are the kind of things we've got to fix if we're going to continue to bring tourism into this town. And that's one thing as a council member I'm going to push for.
You know, it starts with investing in the promotion of our rural landscape. As a native Lexingtonian, I often can get complacent and forget about how rich the beautiful landscape is here in Fayette County. Again, going back to the first question, it's our Napa Valley of California. That is our signature brand. We have to embrace it, and by embracing it, we have to do what we did when we did the World Equestrian Games back in 2010, and as we host the Breeders' Cup, promote ourselves nationally. It gives us a perfect stage to take Lexington to the next level on an agritourism basis. Our partners out there, such as the Kentucky Horse Park, we have yet to tap in and develop that relationship. We have a beautiful park out there. We can actually do a lot more with what's going on out there than we are now. The other thing that's been floated out there, and I know it's in the works, is this new walking, biking, and motor tour that could be sponsored through our rural landscape that gives more people hands-on interaction with our rural community. But it goes back also to education, educating our young people of the importance of it so they can grow up and promote it as well, because it shouldn't stop with us. We should keep building upon our rural landscapes and getting more people involved in protecting it.
Mr. Beatty.
I think about Lexington and think how perfectly positioned we are to take advantage of this idea of agritourism. But it's going to require us to be innovative and certainly creative in how we create spaces and places for these types of activities to occur. Don't get me wrong, no one loves to go to Disney World any more than I do. I love to go to see the big mouse. I hate to say that. But the reality of it is, what is it that draws you back to that? What draws you back to that? I know some folks have been taking a look at that. How do we make Lexington, the agribusiness, the agritourism, effective so that folks want to come back and be a part of it? And so we need to look at the models out there that allow us to do that, and Disney certainly does a great job of creating the philosophy of why people want to come back. So we need to create policies and ordinances that are conducive to allowing that type of business to occur. We certainly want to take advantage of the farmland that we have, but at the same time do it in, a balanced approach and have much discussion about how we do it. But there's no reason that we in Lexington, Kentucky are not perfectly positioned to have an excellent example of what agritourism can be. So let's take advantage of it.
I love the story. Many of you all know Bill Samuels, I'm sure, of Maker's Mark. Well, Bill tells the story that about 60 years ago, he was with his father, and they were visiting the Napa Valley, and they were visiting the monks. And at a meeting, the monks were talking about perhaps creating within the Napa Valley a place where people would come to visit the vineyards. And it seems to me in this conversation today, it illustrates that, Lexington is perhaps in the same moment, recognizing these extraordinary assets that make us authentic and rich, special and unique, and leveraging those assets. This this notion of Frank Penn, and I see John Phillips, and I know Price, and a bunch of folks have already taken that step to connect the rural landscape, to consider opportunities, and there are going to be challenges within that. I would say, by taking a page out of some of the pension reform models that we used, the health insurance reform models that we use, where we bring the different parties to the table, we work through the tension, we work through the challenges, but we leverage all the resources that we've got.
Mr. Sigalka.
Well, I agree with a lot of what's been said. Lexington has a very unique and special brand that it's known for, and agritourism is a great way to leverage that brand. How to do that? Quite frankly, I would rely on a lot of the people in this room, sort of what like Mr. Mayor Gray was talking about. Bring them together, work out the issues. I know there's been attempts in the past to try and promote different aspects of our community, rural aspects of our community. So we need to find out how do we best do that, because it is such a unique advantage. It gives us a competitive advantage in so many other areas, not just in protecting our brand, but in bringing people here. We used to, 10 years ago, we were concerned about a brain drain in Lexington, that people would come here, get a good education at the University of Kentucky, and then leave. Well, there's also a brain gain that goes on in this community. People choose to live here. People look at a map, have a set of criteria for where they want to live, where they want to raise their family, and they choose to be here. I'm one of them. I grew up here. I moved when I was 10. I had the opportunity when I was going to law school to pick from a few law schools. I chose the University of Kentucky because I wanted to come home. I knew that my life would be better here, that I would be able to provide for my kids a way of life that's sort of non-existent in a lot of parts of the world. There's a lot of people that in this community that chose to live here because of our brand, and it can be a competitive advantage for corporate relocation, for job recruitment, and that's something that I think is very exciting and we can use to leverage for a lot of other good purposes.
Mr. Kay.
I think there are a lot of good ideas about what could be done with ag tourism. The real question is, how do we take advantage of those opportunities without negatively impacting the farm operations? And as Mr. Sigalka said, there's many people in the room who've already given a fair amount of thought to that. I had the privilege a number of years ago of facilitating a group that was initially called the Bank One Group, that came forward, that basically met for a year and a half, had all of the major stakeholders at the table, and brought forth what ended up being the Rural Land Management Plan and the Purchase of Development Rights Program. After they had concluded their discussions and made a proposal, it went through the Green Space Commission, the Planning Commission, and the Council without objection. And it had the neighborhoods, it had the developers, it had the farm people, it had everybody at the table, and they worked it through. And this is the kind of question, I think, that deserves that same kind of attention. So I would advocate for creating, whether it's a task force or a commission, some body that takes responsibility for bringing the stakeholders together, talking through the issues, and reaching a consensus about how we do this in a way that makes sense both to the people who are only looking at economic development and the people who may only be looking at the horse farms or the general farms, but find the common ground and create a plan that we can all get behind.
Thank you. There is one more question, and that will go to the Fayette County Neighborhood Council, and the first answer will go to Mr. Logan, and then we'll go in the same way that we've gone.
Lexington has many infill redevelopment opportunities throughout the entire city. How do you propose to protect and promote the character of our suburban neighborhoods while pursuing this needed growth strategy?
A couple months ago, there was a very heated or informed discussion on the council floor about some economic expansion opportunity downtown, development of another hotel, museum, restaurant. One of the things, a comment that was made during that stuck out to me was that we needed this downtown because it is the only shovel-ready opportunity we have for Lexington. Our infrastructure continues to be the the crippling component to expansion and growth here in Lexington. Our city budget relies so heavily on the payroll tax. It's the 5th largest in the state of Kentucky. Economic and financial improvement here in Lexington is handled easiest by creating an environment for job growth, creating an environment for companies to relocate. That will increase the revenues for the city. Coldstream is a wonderful opportunity for such relocation and job growth. However, the infrastructure is not online there at Coldstream for any job creation or expansion at this point in time. If we want to have serious infill, if we want to have serious development within the urban service boundary, then we have to move forward on fixing our infrastructure needs. The consent decree is before us, and we know where we're at on that. I would contend that we are not quite on scale and lagging behind, and we have a lot of projects and a lot of opportunities and a lot of growth that are suffering because of that. It's an example of local government. I'm seeing that I have to stop. I'm a pastor, and I normally am not used to that, but I understand in this forum.
Thank you. Infill and redevelopment is very important to this city. Being a former CAO, I know how important the consent decree is. I worked with Charlie Martin. He's done a tremendous job. But the concerns that I have about infill redevelopment, we've got to be proactive. And one example, I don't want to get too much teeth in the infill because I'm big in affordable housing. That's what I've done for 30 years, and we just passed to try to get this affordable housing going. The last thing we want to do is hurt and make it impossible to get affordable housing in these infill redevelopment. So we got to be sure that we're positive on that. And another example is the business. We just opened up the distillery down at the pepper mill. We had an opportunity to do a flood study on that. It's 9 feet in the flood study. It never floods. These people have to go out and build their buildings like it's 9 feet of flood in case it happens. We had an opportunity to get that reading and make that flood go down, and would have been able for them to spend more money on their project and enhance what they're doing than if we just be a little bit more aggressive. So we've got to be positive with the developers and also with the homeowners. So I support the infield, but I also want to be sure we don't hurt them.
You know, what attracts a lot of people to Lexington is what we're known for is our balance. You know, we tend to balance things very well when it comes to preserving our rural landscape. For every dollar we invest out there, we must balance that with investing in our infill and redevelopment opportunities. And what that starts with is making government more efficient, making it easier to do those projects through getting through our processes faster, and having government also assist in investing in that infrastructure that at times is so costly, which takes us to our basic services. We continue to gather parkland, yet our park budget is lower today than it was 10 years ago on maintenance. We continue building trails and walking trails throughout our community, yet we have our first trail in need of paving. We don't have the money to do that coming up. We have to continue to invest in our sewer system. I inherited a district 10 years ago that was #1 in sewer problems, #2 in stormwater. Today, we're nowhere near the top. We've invested over $3 million to fix our stormwater problems and over $20 million in our sewer problems in my district alone. We have to focus on basic services if we want infill and redevelopment to work. And the last piece of this whole puzzle is creating a land bank. We've talked about it for several years while I've been on council, but that land bank is important. And partnering with Commerce Lexington, we have the Bluegrass Industrial Park that we've used for years for small to medium-sized businesses locally to grow and attract new ones, but that's full. We need to create a land bank, make it more accessible, and that way we can be part of controlling the 12,000 acres out there that are ready for commercial and residential redevelopment in our community. We have to embrace it, same way as we have done PDR in the past.
Hi, when we look at Fayette County, there are about 200 square miles outside of the urban service area, and in the urban service area, about another 85. So 285 square miles, and Mr. Stennett just mentioned there are about 12,000 acres of land ready and available in the urban area, in the urban service area, ready for infill and development. But we have needs that we have to meet in order to do that. Number one, we certainly have infrastructure needs. Those have been pointed out, being the EPA mandate, which simply means we've got to have the capacity for our storm sewers and our sanitary sewers for that to happen. You see the tragedies the tragic situations we have in some of our urban settings when we have too much a downpour of rain in a short period of time. We've got to fix that so that we can make the infill happen. Also, we have to create incentives for developers and other individuals to want to move toward infill development rather than sprawling out to the urban setting and impacting our suburban areas. We've got to create incentives, and those incentives have to be equitable so that everyone has a fair and equal opportunity to participate in the infill development. We also want to protect the character of the suburban neighborhoods by encouraging the density that infill development allows us to do. And certainly with those 12,000 acres, we have the great opportunity to create more housing, more of the opportunities for commercial developments within the infill area that will keep that from sprawling into our suburban setting.
I want to recognize the Fayette County Neighborhood Council. And I see Walt Guyfield out there. I don't see Emma Tibbs. I know she's here in spirit, Margaret, isn't she? But absent that advocacy, we perhaps would not be engaged in the project we are today to fix our infrastructure. Now, I've learned in this business of politics, you got to be shameless. You don't want to be a know-it-all, and you don't want to appear to be the smartest kid in the class. But I come out of the construction industry. So I'm working every day managing this project. And an example of the way that we are managing is through what's called value engineering. The Town Branch Tank Project, the holding tank project, with a $118 million estimate out of the $600 million total project. Through value engineering, through the work of Charlie Martin and a really good cast of project managers, that project is today estimated at perhaps as low as $70 million and still achieving the highest quality. So, what does that translate into? That translates into savings for our taxpayers and a better chance for doing the very development, the infill, that will then preserve the character and what's remarkable about Lexington.
I had a coffee the other day with a friend and mentor who has been very involved over the years with Fayette County, served on the charter committee, served on the council for a number of years, and I asked him, what's the number one issue over the years that you've had to deal with? And this, preserving rural heritage and then infill and redevelopment are the two things that he mentioned, particularly infill and redevelopment, because it's sort of where the vision that politicians always talk about, the ideal city, meets the nitty-gritty of city government. The vision of a new building, the vision of a new neighborhood or revitalization meets the storm sewers, sanitary sewers, traffic, road conditions. All those things interact when you get down to redevelopment and infill. The one thing that you absolutely have to do, and Mayor Gray and the Fayette County Neighborhood Council, Emma Tibbs, all these groups have been great at, is you have to communicate with the neighborhood. You have to have meetings. You have to make them aware of what's going on, because a lot of neighbors, people in the community, feel left out. They're unaware that there's a project going on down the street until it's too late. They get very frustrated. You have to inform them. We have to do a better job of communicating with them, bringing them into the process, reaching out to them and making them feel included. And when you do that, when you bring people together, these barriers tend to break down. People realize that maybe the project is in their best interest, their preconceived notions sort of subside, and they become invested. They're able to be invested in their community, but they're able to share their concerns. And in the end, the project usually turns out to be quite a bit better for everybody.
Mr. Kay.
I think we all know that the best way to protect our productive rural landscape is by focusing on infill and redevelopment. The question is how to do that. I had the privilege of serving as a consultant to the city on infill and redevelopment before I was elected to council. And when I got elected to council, I became co-chair of the Infill and Redevelopment Committee. We've worked diligently over the last 3.5 years. I want to cite two things that I think are really crucial that we did. First, focused on code enforcement and getting code enforcement to be both fair and effective so that we could rely on our buildings being maintained and not have them as an impediment to infill and redevelopment. And secondly, simplify and support people who are interested in doing infill and redevelopment throughout the community. So there was some concern about the difficulty of the process, some concern that it was much more expensive to do infill and other things. We've worked on those issues and I think made some progress on them. We need to make a little more. The other thing I would mention is that I've also been privileged to serve as chair of the Design Excellence Task Force. And we will be bringing to council a set of design guidelines and a set of incentives for the redevelopment of downtown to do two things: maintain the standards so that we have an effective and attractive downtown, and provide some balance for the fact that it's more expensive to do development in the downtown area.
Mr. Larson.
Infill depends on not only Fayette County, but it depends on what available land and space and development businesses we have in the entire region. One of our partisan presidents used an analogy from the Bible of a city on a hill. Well, take a look at it. We're the plateau surrounded by the Kentucky River. We should be proud that we have this wonderful land space, but we have to plan for it, and we have to plan for it on a regional basis. We have the Kentucky River Trail, which should be developed. We've got to connect the bike paths that we have in our county with bike paths in other counties. Ecotourism can be our path to something else, but my graduate degree in business shows me that it's site location. We need markets, we need space, we need minimal government interference, we need transportation. All those things have to go. We have to be concerned about where the interstates are, where industrial development might go next. I suggest that it might go in toward Bluegrass Station and toward Carr County. That seems to be an area where we don't interfere with horse farms. But industry is important, but infill, we can bide our time until this area grows out, and we're going to have to consider other than Fayette County. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. That concludes the question and response section. I'm going to cross up the timers a little bit. Since the candidates have done such a good job of staying within the time limit, we were going to give them 1 minute for closing, but we'll go to 1.5 minutes. So, and we'll begin with the mayoral candidates, and with Mayor Gray, and then Mr. Beatty, and then we'll go down, Mr. Stennett, to you and come up that way. Is that okay, timers? Are you all right?
All right, Daniel?
Okay.
Okay. Well, Alan Stein, you may know this. Dizzy Dean once said, if you've done it, it ain't bragging. Now, another way of putting that is the best indicator of future performance is past performance. I said early that my touchstone for the last 4 years has been getting things done. And what does that mean? 3 goals: creating jobs, running government efficiently, and building a great American city. Creating jobs, what have we done? 9,000 new jobs. Today, 150,000 people are employed in Lexington, more than ever in its history. A firm like Bingham McCutcheon chose Lexington over 300 cities. And why, they said, was optimism. In running government efficiently, we took a budget that was $35 million in the hole, a health insurance plan that was $20 million in the hole, and we turned it into a surplus. That allows us to make investments in building a great American city, in public safety, in parks, in neighborhoods, in trails, in affordable housing that's never been done before, now $3 million this year by the council, and homeless, a consent decree, yes, and PDR, and regional food coordinators. All of this together, getting things done. Thank you.
I chose to run for the office of mayor for a couple of reasons. Number one, being a native Lexingtonian growing up here in the inner city of Lexington, the community certainly has been gracious to Eunice and I and our families, and so in that spirit, we tend to be the types of folks who give back, and that's what I'm doing here. And there are a couple of reasons that I'm running. Number one, it pained me greatly to see our city, my city of Lexington, seeing the types of crime and patterns and trends that we were starting to see. And in conversations, we discussed with folks how we could work on that. So number one, I'm running to make sure that we can provide proactive public safety to the citizens of Lexington. Number two, it's important to me that we provide the infrastructure needs for all the things that we've talked about here today, that being the types of projects that protect our brand, protect our rural areas, and also give us the opportunity to develop internally and in terms of infill. I certainly think we need to look at creative ways of providing infrastructure improvements, things like technology, things like traffic improvements. How do you get to the down here to the theater on time today? How do you do that? We need to make traffic improvements. And certainly technology, we need to move quickly toward providing opportunity for broadband access, high-speed access very quickly to our community to progress. And so making Lexington better, there are a couple of things that we have to do. Those are a couple of those things, but the last thing I pledge to you is that I will provide fiscal stewardship of highest character and certainty of integrity, and you will be proud of us as a city. Thank you.
Mr. Stennett.
10 years ago, I ran for city council because a city official told me we would never have baseball lights on a ballpark on the north end of Lexington. I ran for city council, and the first thing I did was put lights on that ball field so those 500 kids could play baseball. And I spent the last 10 years never wanting to tell anyone no. I want to be a can-do leader on council, not a can't-do. I'm a small business owner and a native Lexingtonian. I've worked with 25 different council members and 3 mayors efficiently and effectively getting things done. $30 million in road projects in my district, $3 million in stormwater, $20 million in sewer projects, $1 million in parks, and so on and so on. But going forward, we need leaders who understand that we have to keep investing in people in all neighborhoods in Lexington, not just their own. We have to continue revitalization of downtown, critically important to our future. We have to continue funding public safety. We have to continue investing in our infrastructure, but most importantly, we have to continue creating jobs and working to improve our educational systems in Lexington with Fayette County Public Schools, BCTC, and UK and Pennsylvania, and all of our educational partners. Education, creating jobs are government's #1 priority. And we need leaders who understand that. We need leaders who can work with 15 other council members around that horseshoe and can get 8 votes to get things done. I love this city and I love serving you, and I ask for your vote on November 4th as your next council member at large. Thank you.
Mr. Maloney.
First of all, I want to thank our sponsors, the Fayette Alliance, the Fayette County Farm Bureau, the Fayette County Neighborhood Council, the Kentucky Theater, Brad, for Portofino and Wayne and Susan Masterson, and the judge, thank you. I have over 25 years experience. I appreciate my record. I support what I've done, and you know what I've done. You know my record, and I will put my record up against anybody. I enjoy working with the people and enjoy helping people. But most important is, experience is what it comes down to. And as a council member at large, I have those experiences. As you heard the answers that I gave tonight, I want to be the council member from downtown to the county line. The Farmer Bureau, I want to be your council person. Fayette County Alliance, I want to be your council person. Fayette County Neighborhood Association, I want to be your council person. And the audience, I want to be your council person. So on November the 4th, I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Mr. Logan.
Lexington's home. I was born and raised here, graduated from her schools. I'm a Bronze Station graduate, the University of Kentucky. I've started business here. I've spent 8 years as a financial planner here, and I currently pastor a church in our community. People ask me why I'm running. It's because I have 4 wonderful children that I hope they can find the opportunity to be successful right here in Lexington. I want this to be the type of community that if they choose to stay here, that they'll find opportunity to succeed, opportunity for good employment and good jobs, and this city will live up to its potential. I've never served on public office. I don't have some of the experience that some of these folks up here do, but I think that's a good thing. I believe it's important sometimes to have a new set of ears that will listen to people like you, and a new set of eyes that will see problems from a new perspective. I've lived here all my life, and I know that we have a habit of passing problems on to future generations, and we need real solutions. And I think a new person at the table will help provide that opportunity. If you vote for me and I earn your support this November, I promise to focus on safety for our community, economic development, so businesses can thrive and new businesses will come to Lexington, efficiency in government. See, I still believe that there's room to save in government so that we don't have to raise taxes, that we can find other avenues of funding the projects that we need to do. And I'll also focus on educational opportunity. I've heard it said that it takes a village to raise a child. Well, I think it takes a community to educate one. See, my 4 kids graduated or are involved in public schools. My daughter just started Henry Clay. My second youngest daughter just started Edith J. Hayes. So I want to be an active council member in promoting quality education to our children.
Mr. Larson.
I heard the mayor talk about getting things done, and it's not getting done regionally now. Remember there was a editorial in the paper about little kingdoms? Well, we're a little kingdom. We've got to look someplace else. We've got to share our development with other counties, and we can get that done. I want to be one of the people on the council who's going to push for things that might help out agriculture, might save the equine industry, might care for the things that are important in this whole area. There was mention of working for inside the county line. Well, you've seen Lexington has gone beyond the county line, especially at Jessamine County. They're not governmentally set up to protect us from development. We've allowed this urban service area to expand too far. So the right thing wasn't done. But as a lawyer, I want to do the right thing. Win, lose, or no matter what, the right thing is to expand this government so it has a vision for something else, a vision for a metropolitan area, as the truckers used to call it, Metro City. Nick Alexin's capital at Fayette Mall, we're all part of it. And it should be into decency, fatherhood initiative, felon voting, jail reform, love for each other.
Mr. Kay.
Well, first, my thanks to the sponsors and to all of you for coming out and being part of the democratic process. I believe that my long professional career of working on public policy and my extensive civic work prepared me to be an effective member on council. Since being elected, I've worked hard and I've taken on leadership roles and been effective in those roles. I've mentioned a few of them. In addition to the co-chair of Infill and Redevelopment and the chairmanship of the Design Excellence Task Force and working on local food economy, I've had the privilege of being the chair of the Mayor's Commission on Homelessness, and I'm proud to say that the recommendations from that commission have had first reading and are likely to get a full second reading next week. And we will have for the first time an office of both homelessness and an office for affordable housing. I feel deeply about the work I do. I work hard, and I believe I've been effective. I ask that you give me the chance to continue to serve you and to work hard for this community. Thank you.
And Mr. Segelka.
Thank you, Judge. I want to also thank the sponsors, the Fayette Alliance, the Farm Bureau, and the Neighborhood Council. This is a very special city. It's a great city. And as good as we are, we can be better. We can be much better. And it just takes vision and leadership and leaders that will listen to you. My mom used to tell me that no one ever learned anything by talking. What I've tried to do in the last year or so is go around and listen to as many people as I can. Go out into the communities all over Lexington, every part, and just talk to people and find out what's going on in their community. And I ask them, what can we do to make your community better? What can we do to make your neighborhood better? And getting that feedback and receiving that feedback and listening to people is really what can make us an even better city and make us a great place make this a great place for our children and our grandchildren. So with that, I will conclude and let everyone go about their business.
Thank you to the candidates for thank you for being willing to run for public office and come here and give thoughtful answers that you've given today. I'm sure it was helpful to the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here, and thanks to the sponsoring organizations. Again, a special thanks to the Kentucky Theater and Fred Mills in Portofino. We do have 2 people who have won door prizes, and the winners are Denise White and Bob McCrae. So if you want to come up and get your door prizes, we'll present those to you. Anything else, Ms. Van Loan? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.